The story begins with a young novelist named Jennifer, who leaves the city behind and rents a secluded cabin in the woods so she can finish writing her latest novel. After arriving, she stops by a local store where she meets Earl, the owner of the cabin. He hands her the key and explains how to get there. A little later, Jennifer stops at a gas station to fill up her car, where she notices two men, Andy and Stanley, staring at her. A worker named Johnny comes over to help and casually asks where she's staying. Jennifer tells him she's renting a nearby cabin. While paying, she accidentally knocks over a bucket, soaking Johnny's pants. His friends immediately start laughing at him. Jennifer apologizes and continues on her way. Soon she reaches the isolated cabin, settles in, and begins working on her novel. The cabin sits deep in the forest with no one living for miles around. That night, while talking to a friend on the phone, she hears a strange noise outside. When she goes to check, she finds the door to a storage room standing open. Inside are several tools along with a container of poisonous powder. She closes the door and returns to her cabin. Later, while writing, she accidentally spills beer on her clothes and goes inside to clean them, unaware that someone outside is secretly recording her through the window. The next morning, Jennifer returns from a jog and discovers that dirty water is coming from the faucet and the toilet is clogged. She calls Earl for help, but while trying to deal with the problem, she accidentally drops her phone into the toilet. She does everything she can to dry it out, but the phone no longer works, leaving her completely cut off in the remote area. A short time later, Earl sends a plumber named Matthew to fix the pipes. After he finishes the job, Jennifer thanks him with a quick kiss on the cheek. Matthew is shy and innocent, so he awkwardly smiles before leaving. That evening, he goes fishing with Stanley, Andy, and Johnny and tells them about what happened. Johnny refuses to believe him until Stanley plays a video he secretly recorded through Jennifer's window the previous night. After watching it, Johnny begins making disturbing comments about Jennifer and tells his friends that he plans to go after her that night. Later that evening, Jennifer is asleep when she suddenly hears a noise at the front door. She steps outside and finds a dead bird lying on the doorstep. Alarmed, she quickly returns inside, only to freeze when she sees photos of those same men displayed on her laptop. Before she can understand what's happening, the three men force their way into the cabin and surround her. Stanley, who has an unhealthy habit of secretly recording people's private lives, begins filming the entire incident with his camera. Trying to stay calm, Jennifer tells them to leave because her boyfriend is on his way. Johnny laughs and says he already knows she doesn't have a boyfriend, and he also heard about the kiss she gave Matthew. Moments later, they bring Matthew into the cabin as well. Jennifer explains that she was simply thanking him for fixing the plumbing, but Johnny refuses to listen. Convinced that he already knows everything about women like her, he ignores her explanation. He then hands Jennifer a bottle of beer and tells her to drink it, promising that if she does, all of them will leave. Left with no other choice, Jennifer does what Johnny asks, but even after she drinks the beer, the group refuses to leave. Instead, Johnny's behavior becomes even more disturbing. He orders Jennifer to show him her teeth, and although frightened, she reluctantly obeys. Johnny grabs her face and begins inspecting her teeth before pulling out a gun and telling her to kiss it, pretending it's her boyfriend. Watching everything unfold, Matthew becomes deeply uncomfortable and turns his face away. Andy then forces a bottle toward Jennifer, but she gathers the courage to shove him away. Seizing the opportunity, she grabs a can of spray from her bag, sprays Stanley in the eyes, and escapes into the woods. After running all night, morning finally arrives. Along the way, Jennifer comes across two men, one of whom is Earl, the same man who rented her the cabin. She tells them everything that happened. The other man introduces himself as the local sheriff and assures her that she has nothing to worry about. Based on her description, he immediately recognizes Johnny and Stanley. He then takes Jennifer back to her cabin. After looking around, the sheriff finds no one. However, he discovers Jennifer's beer bottle along with several rolled joints nearby. He claims she must have imagined everything because of alcohol and drugs. Jennifer firmly insists that she is telling the truth and explains that the men had forced their way into her cabin and tried to attack her. Even then, the sheriff refuses to believe her. Instead, he accuses Jennifer of making false allegations against boys he has known since childhood. Pretending to conduct a search, he begins touching her inappropriately. A few moments later, Johnny, Stanley, Andy, and Matthew arrive. The moment Jennifer sees them smiling alongside the sheriff, she realizes he has been working with them all along. The sheriff drops his act and joins the others in tormenting her, while Stanley continues recording everything with his camera. Johnny then grabs Jennifer and orders Matthew to take off his clothes, telling him that tonight he will finally become a man. Matthew refuses at first, but after relentless pressure and intimidation, he gives in. The group forces him to dance, then throws him to the ground and holds Jennifer down. Overwhelmed by their threats, Matthew breaks under the pressure and becomes part of the horrific ordeal, while Jennifer cries out in pain and desperation. During the incident, the sheriff receives a call from his daughter, Angel. She asks him to come home early, and he promises that he will. Once everything is over, the group leaves Jennifer behind. Somehow, she manages to pull herself together and begins walking away. But her nightmare is far from over. Before she gets very far, the same 5 men appear again. Still unwilling to leave her alone, they force her to the ground once more. Stanley continues filming while Andy repeatedly pushes her face underwater. The sheriff also takes part as Jennifer's desperate cries echo through the forest, yet none of them show the slightest bit of mercy. The brutality of the attack leaves her life forever changed. When they finally leave, Jennifer somehow struggles back to her feet and stumbles forward. After everything she has endured, she is barely holding herself together. A short time later, she reaches a bridge, only to find the same 5 men arriving once again, this time determined to make sure she does not escape. With no other option left, Jennifer makes one final desperate choice and jumps from the bridge into the water below. The group looks over the bridge, searching for Jennifer, but she is nowhere to be seen. Convinced that her body will eventually surface, they wait for hours. When nothing appears, the sheriff orders everyone to spread out and keep searching until they find her. He warns them that if Jennifer is still alive, all of them could end up in prison. To destroy every trace of what happened, the sheriff smashes Stanley's videotape because it contains footage of their crimes. They then burn all of Jennifer's belongings to eliminate any remaining evidence. After covering everything up, the sheriff returns home, where his daughter, Angela, is waiting with good news. She happily tells him that she has been accepted into an honors program. The following morning, the sheriff returns the cabin key to Earl. When Earl asks whether Jennifer has already left, the sheriff calmly tells him that she simply didn't like the area and decided to go home. Meanwhile, Johnny and his friends continue searching for Jennifer, but despite their efforts, they find no sign of her. Unlike the others, Matthew cannot escape the guilt of what happened. The memory continues to haunt him, and before long, he begins seeing Jennifer everywhere he looks. A few days later, Earl calls the sheriff and tells him that Jennifer's sister has been asking why Jennifer never returned home. Earl is beginning to suspect that something terrible may have happened because the last time he saw Jennifer, she was with the sheriff. Once again, the sheriff brushes off his concerns and insists that Jennifer already left town. The next morning, Stanley rushes to Johnny and Andy in a panic, revealing that his camera has been stolen. The real problem is that the camera still contains all the recordings involving Jennifer. Stanley admits that the tape the sheriff destroyed was actually a fake because he had secretly switched it with the original beforehand. Furious, Johnny lashes out at Stanley, demanding to know why he recorded everything in the first place. The following day, when the sheriff returns home, his wife gives him a package that someone left for him. Inside is a videotape. The moment he sees it, fear spreads across his face. He immediately rushes to the others and begins beating Stanley, demanding to know how the tape ended up at his house. Johnny then explains that someone also tried to frighten him the previous night, and he is certain Matthew is responsible. He believes Matthew stole Stanley's camera because he felt the most guilt over Jennifer's disappearance and still has the original recording. Enraged, the sheriff orders them to find Matthew immediately, warning that if he is not brought back before nightfall, he will kill every one of them. After giving the order, the sheriff goes to see Earl. Realizing that Earl has also begun suspecting the truth, he decides not to take any chances and kills him. Meanwhile, Matthew sits outside Jennifer's cabin, completely consumed by guilt. Suddenly, he hears Jennifer's voice. Following the sound inside, he is stunned to see Jennifer sitting calmly on a couch. She calls him over and gently tells him that she knows he has been living with overwhelming guilt. Hearing Jennifer's voice, Matthew breaks down in tears. He apologizes over and over, insisting that he never intended for any of this to happen. Jennifer is no longer willing to listen. She slips a rope around his neck and tightens it until he loses consciousness. Meanwhile, Andy and Stanley are searching for Matthew. Andy wanders into an abandoned house while Stanley heads deeper into the woods. Suddenly, Jennifer steps out in front of Stanley. Shocked to see her alive, he rushes toward her, but his foot is caught in a hidden trap. As he cries out for help, Andy runs over, only for Jennifer to attack him from behind. Moments later, she strikes Stanley as well, leaving both men unconscious. When Andy wakes up, he finds himself tied above a bathtub with wooden supports holding him in place. Jennifer turns on the water, slowly filling the tub beneath him. At the same time, Jennifer has Stanley tied to a tree and begins recording him with his own camera, mocking the way he once invaded other people's privacy. She forces a dead rat into his mouth, then hooks a fishing hook through his eyebrow and ties it to the tree so he can't even close his eyes. She then returns to Andy. Begging for mercy, he apologizes repeatedly, but Jennifer reminds him that she once begged the same way, and no one listened. After mixing the poisonous powder into the water, she removes the wooden support beneath him, dropping him into the chemical-filled tub where he eventually dies. Jennifer then walks back to Stanley, cuts open a fish, and places pieces of its flesh over his eyes as bait. Before long, crows gather and begin pecking at the bait. Trapped and unable to defend himself, Stanley eventually dies from the attack. Jennifer's next stop is the gas station, where she ambushes Johnny and kidnaps him. When he regains consciousness, he finds himself tied up in the middle of the forest. She reminds him of everything he put her through before beginning to pull out his teeth one by one. Even while screaming in pain, Johnny continues insulting her and boasting about himself. Jennifer tells him that his arrogance ends today. Moments later, she permanently takes away the source of that pride, and Johnny eventually dies from his injuries. Elsewhere, the sheriff is at work when his wife calls to tell him that their daughter Angel's teacher has come to pick her up. Angel excitedly tells him that her teacher is taking her to a playground. The sheriff asks to speak with the teacher, and the voice on the other end reveals something that instantly terrifies him. The teacher is Jennifer. The moment she says her name, the sheriff panics and desperately begs her not to hurt his daughter. Jennifer ignores his plea and hangs up. The sheriff races home in a panic, only to learn from his wife that the teacher has already taken Angel to the playground. Horrified, he rushes there immediately and frantically searches the entire area, but Angel is nowhere to be found. Panicked and overwhelmed, the sheriff rushes back to his car, but before he can drive away, Jennifer attacks him from behind, knocks him unconscious, and takes him with her. When the sheriff finally wakes up, he finds himself tied up. It is obvious that the hunter has now become the prey. Jennifer has positioned his own shotgun behind him and coated part of the setup with chili powder to make his situation even more unbearable. Desperate, the sheriff begs for his life, but she reminds him that she went through the same kind of suffering while he and the others stood by without mercy. The sheriff then panics and asks what she has done to his daughter. Jennifer replies by asking how he would feel if someone treated his daughter the same way they treated another man's daughter. Furious, the sheriff says he would kill anyone who did such a thing. Jennifer calmly reminds him that he had no problem allowing the same thing to happen to someone else's daughter. To make him suffer even more, Jennifer tells him that, just as Matthew once acted under pressure, she forced him to do the same to Angel before throwing her into the river. Hearing this, the sheriff completely loses control. Jennifer then ties a rope from the shotgun's trigger to Matthew's hand. Matthew is lying unconscious right in front of the sheriff. After setting everything in place, Jennifer tells the sheriff that as soon as Matthew wakes up, neither of them will survive. She walks outside and waits while the sheriff desperately continues begging for his life. A short time later, Matthew regains consciousness. The sheriff immediately warns him not to move, but in his panic, Matthew instinctively moves his hand. The rope pulls the trigger, the shotgun fires, and the blast strikes both of them. Within moments, both the sheriff and Matthew lose their lives. In the end, Jennifer has taken revenge on everyone responsible for destroying her life. After all of them are gone, a quiet sense of closure finally appears on her face. With that, the story comes to an end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.